money moves. Evolution of your life. If I was cool. Yo, success ain't a straight line, they flip their feet. Turn setbacks to comebacks, now they're straight greats. From the grind to the shine, watch the pros improve. On unconventional money, it's the next gen groove. Genius minds outside the lines of unconventional money, we rise and shine. Unconventional money moves, where success rewrites the rules.
Happy to have you on. I know
Yeah.
we do, I think we're in the same space, but we do things a little bit differently in the wealth management space. So I was excited to have you on, learn about, you had a book come out. You said you do some unconventional strategies that people don't do in mainstream finance because nowadays with Reddit, Google, the internet, everyone knows everything when it comes to investing, finance, taxes, etc.
Yeah, it's a free world for all, it seems, right? So
Yeah, so happy to have you on. You just came out with your book about my father's business, Enslaved versus Entrusted. What made you decide to write the book? What was the inspiration for this book? Is it even finance related? Tell us about it.
yeah, it is not a typical finance book, but it is something deeper, in the world of finance. But it's more deeper in the sense of it's more spiritual in the sense of it's an unseen aspect of finance. So about my father's business is kind of inspiration came from 10-15 years I've been studying money, wealth, finance, legacy, and I have a faith background where I like to live out what I believe. So I was kind of digging more into the ancient wisdom of what the biblical principles on money and wealth and all those things. That inspired me more and more. The more I learned about it, I realized, okay, this is something people use in all aspect of life, in business and all those things. They don't classify it as this truth or that, but I realized the same like gravity, everybody uses it, right?
Yeah.
And it's a different way. If you violate that principle of gravity, there's consequences, but if you use it, there's good things out of it. So that's kind of the background of I've been kind of digging deep more into it. And last few years, I've realized, okay, these are some of the principles that I use in my life. And, anywhere from just living a debt-free life to, creating wealth that is more, doing good for others than just for myself. So those are things that, I learned that, okay, money is more than just accumulating things. It's about, stewarding it and, creating a legacy for long term and things like that. So that's what inspired me to write the book. And it's a faith-based finance, basically what it is, and kind of teaching on, hey, there's a force behind money for good or evil, right? So which creates anywhere from greed to hoarding to scarcity to abundance. And so there's a lot of things behind it. So that's where it came from.
Cool. I know some people do faith and finance. I know Dave Ramsey is one of them. I'm not sure what you and Dave Ramsey may or may not have in common, but like what's different from what you are doing versus what I guess Dave Ramsey's probably like the mainstream guy when it comes to faith and finance and basically being debt free and not taking risks, being more a simple, boring investor.
Yeah. I'm faith-based, but I'm also risk-free, but that doesn't mean that you don't take risk. It's mitigating risk and eliminating unnecessary risk and things like that. But I'm an entrepreneur also. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I love risk. But I learned also that I take less risk than I used to be. When I was younger, I used to be a day trader also. So so that's it. But similarities I have with Dave Ramsey is that I was in a class with him about 15 some years ago. We both were in a financial planning class based on faith, for biblical principles. So that's the only thing that I really have, other than debt free. I don't, follow a lot of his stuff, but I think his teaching has a lot to do with for beginners. Like if you are struggling in finance and you are in debt, it's good. The biblical principle he teaches as far as, not living, or because debt can be very, because Bible talks about when you are debtor, you are slave to the lender. That's one of the biblical principles. So that's what I emphasize on. You don't want to live a enslaved life. That's what my book teaches also, right? You can live entrusted as a steward. The Bible also teaches that God owns the whole world and we are stewards. So right, so just because you and I, we have the ability to go make money, doesn't mean that it's just for us to hold. Nothing wrong with enjoying the things of life, but the slavery comes when money become your master, or you are enslaved into wanting more and more. So that's where I kind of differentiate in the sense of, okay, I don't teach exactly what Dave Ramsey teaches in that sense, but there's a lot of principles that businesses and wealthy people and anyone can use, similar to like I mentioned about gravity. It's how you use it that you can maximize the benefit of those principles.
Yeah, there's lots of old stories that are applicable to business. I was learning about a negotiation from like a Yale professor, and they talked about the divided cloth story from the Bible, which I never heard of. And basically, it was talking about like, hey, like if Sam says half of this microphone is his, and I'm only claiming a quarter of the microphone is mine, Sam gets half, and then we split the quarter of the microphone 50-50, depending on what we're saying like we're entitled to. So I thought that was interesting to learn about from a biblical story perspective.
Yeah.
But being an entrepreneur, a lot of entrepreneurs need to raise money. They go into debt. They risk it all.
Yeah.
You said you were a day trader. So were you always having these like principles, or was it something that you evolved into? Like walk us through that journey.
Yeah, I mean, great question in the sense, because a lot of people, we all are affiliated in some way or other, majority of the people with some religious belief and backgrounds that we grew up in a culture, all those things. And I grew up in a culture, it was a fast-paced culture. Actually, I grew up in India, and I grew up in the city, and so was kind of like crazy, like New York City, fast-paced, and so though I have a faith background family-wise, it was just in the head. It was just a knowledge part. But as I grew older and I pursued, a lot of the things that I thought I believed, but didn't think it had a lot of depth to it. So I started testing what I believed. So I wanted to see, okay, is this real, right? And I grew up in a culture where there's a lot of religion, thousands, if not millions of gods. And, so because we are humans who have a void, because Bible says we are created in the image and likeness of God, right? So there's some kind of void in us that we always pursuing to find in money or wealth or business or all those things, but it's not always filled by those things. So pursuing that is what changed my life. More of, okay, there's reality in what I believe, but it's not all what I thought I was. So beginning years, that's where I pursued wealth, and I grew up in a business family. So I had a entrepreneur mindset. So even in college days, I did all kind of different business to pay for college, and so day trading was one of them. And so I tried because it was fast, quick money. So it's that instant gratification process when you're young. You want that to get rich quick, and also that the adrenal caffeine kick in sort of thing that drove me into that. And later I realized that, okay, it was a lot of stress and pursuing after the things that didn't really fulfill me. So those are some of the things that also drove me into study, because I heard about there's principles in the Bible that like I said, when I was with Dave Ramsey, we were they were teaching on these principles. This is 15-20 years ago. So I was just kind of digging into those things, and that's how I realized, okay, there's things that I got to change in my life. And money, if I just pursue that for success and net worth and valuation and identity, I'm being enslaved to it more than if I make money my slave, it will work for me 24/7. And it is just a tool, and it's the mindset towards it that enables me to and use it one way or other. So those are some of my backgrounds that kind of took me to where I am today.
What was something that you believed when you first started that you now like kind of laugh at?
I thought I was always an owner of things.
Hmm.
And I thought the more I made and had things, that's what brought net worth and value to me. And when I introduce others, and I hear about millionaires and billionaires and owners and businesses, and I thought, okay, hey, that's what makes you successful. But I don't now, as a matter of fact, I own nothing. I live a life where I steward things. That's where, we'll talk more on, some of the financial tools I use that helps me to not have any ownership, but have, stewardship. So as a trustee of like my family business and things like that. So that has given me freedom. There's a lot more peace and freedom that I didn't have back then, when I have to, own things, and which means I had to protect things, and I had a lot more liability at that time and things like that. So yeah, it's one of the
Hmm.
mindset change at least I have.
So stewardship, you're talking about like setting up trusts where technically you don't owe anything, but the trust owns everything, and that's part of your strategies that you offer the clientele that you work with.
Yeah, I work with a lot of high income earners and high net worth individuals, and so one of the strategies that we use is a trust structure. It's a non, irrevocable trust structure, which is not
Hmm.
a typical trust. So where you transfer all your assets into it, and you kind of detach your, alter ego and yourself from it. So the trust owns everything, and but you as a trustee get to control and manage and steward it so that you can grow the wealth. And also you create a legacy that you're not just giving your kids just money, because if they're not educated, I realize in studying some of these families that it just ruins the family and create a lot more division in business and in family. So those are some of the things that I learned all the years, and then I shifted to a life where the ownership part changed to more of a stewardship part.
Hmm. So essentially, you're setting up the irrevocable trust so that the trustees, meaning, let's just say you're the trustee, you're putting strict guidelines and instructions on how the assets are going to be used, just in case you got hit by a bus or something.
Yeah. So, again, once you move all those assets, you detach. So even a lot of the income, can be, detached from you. And so especially if you have business and, investments and things, it goes directly to the trust. So there's no taxation that's coming to me also. So, I don't know if you heard Warren Buffett, once mentioned that his secretary paid more taxes than him, because there's two different tax systems. School don't teach you these things. So understanding that you can still stay in the system of tax, because IRS says you can avoid tax, but you can't evade tax, right? So
Hmm.
there's those two things. People may not understand fully what that and how that is. So you can avoid majority of income taxation, because there's no law on income. There are rules and regulation that you have to pay income tax. So which, if you look at the whole taxation, we all pay 50 to 60% taxes, not just 20, 30 income tax. You take the income tax and property tax and sales tax, excise tax. So we all pay into it. But income taxation came after 1930, right?
Hmm.
So that's where there are options. You can avoid that income tax as much as you can, which is totally legal per IRS guidelines. And because these are not taught in school, you can be a CPA or a financial advisor, still they don't teach you these things that is out there. So understanding some of these things, studying the wealthy and how they position their wealth and assets and income, help you to know, hey, there are more than one way you can avoid the income taxation or reduce your taxes and things like that. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely easier if you own like a business or something compared if you have like a normal job.
oh yeah,
But as you're accumulating money, you could definitely take advantage. I mean, the rules are there for you to take advantage of,
yeah,
and most people just never take advantage of the rules, or they don't want to invest into someone that knows the rules to help them with the rules, or someone says, "Hey, I don't have enough money. Why should I even care?"
yeah. Yeah. And the sad part is, again, after the system was set up and after 1913, most of the W2 income, it's internally set up, right? They are taxed the most, right? Sadly, majority of the people live in that income setup. So because of that, people are looking for a good job, but
Hmm.
not realizing 50, 60% of your income, if not more, it's drained through taxation and fees, and those setup that is intentionally set. So you are depending on that job and paycheck more and more. The more you make, the more you give it away. So that's the sad part, like you said, the lack of education or the restriction of the education system that teaches you only so much, so that you don't know what you don't know. You just don't know, right? And then, like you said, majority of the people don't know enough to know, hey, if I spend or invest into a person like Joshua might know these things. If I give that investment to him to teach me, I could learn the right way to avoid, not evade, avoid taxation and fees and things, and keep more of what you make.
Yeah, evasion's what got Al Capone.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you don't want to do that. So
That's what they got. But I mean, avoidance is completely
legal.
legit. I mean, W-2 workers. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, especially software engineers in California. Like, how do I pay less taxes? And like, I mean, there's ways to do it, but it's more challenging compared to someone who starts a business. Or the best way is if you inherit the money. That makes
Yeah,
the things a little bit
mean,
easier.
yeah, it is easy. I mean, even then, there's estate taxes and
Mhm.
things like gift tax and things. And with this trust structure, we are able to avoid a lot of those things if you set it up right. So this is where we have a legal team that really evaluate your system and your income and your asset to see, do you fit into that category too. But like you said, anyone can take advantage. Not everyone does and understand. Lot is because of the lack of understanding or knowledge or fear. That's one of the things. The system here, in the fear of, oh, what if I make the mistakes? I don't want to evade taxes and end up going to jail, right? So that fear factor is there. And there are places people teach us that, oh yeah, you can't do any of those things, and keep people in fear. That's one of the reasons I love educating people and let them make the decision. It is what is right for you. But understand there is options that is there. You educate yourself and look at that and do your due diligence and research and see if this is what's good for you. And because I have doctor clients and friends who make over 7 figures and pay big dollars in taxes. They're looking for their W2 income. There are options there if you're paying a lot in taxes, and so to at least decrease your tax liability. So there are options that anyone can use depending on what situation you're in.
Yeah, accounting is a language of business, and with accounting, you can get very creative. We've seen a lot of companies throughout history get very creative with their accounting and attempt to evade things or hide things and then eventually get caught. But yeah, accounting is I mean, it's like anything. It's like learning a new language or computer programming. But I mean, if you look at a balance sheet and if it's accurate, or if you're helping someone look at the balance sheet of their financial situation, most people don't really look at their finances as a business. They're just like, I go to a job, I put my money in, I get my match, I got healthcare covered, I go on vacation once a year, and that's it.
Yeah, that's sadly the
But in
conditioning
turn,
of your mind, right? The society and the structure of the education system had set us up in that way. I think there is more options now, like you were saying in the beginning. People, because of the Google and all the AI and all those things, more people are seeing and getting more information. But the problem I'm seeing is that it is because it's unconventional and it's not it's outside the education system. People are confused how to use it, and that can
yeah,
get them into trouble. And a lot of time people manipulate that tax advantage part of things and tax avoidance part, and that's when people end up cooking the book or doing the illegal stuff, sort of, to get into trouble. But there are proper way you do things, and at least decrease your tax burden a lot more, and that way you can accumulate wealth faster.
yeah. I would talk to people, and they'd be like, "What's the secret?" And I'd be like, "You know what the secret to making money is? Not making any money." And they would look at me like I'm a little crazy. I'm like, "What do you mean? How do you make money?" Well, it's all about not making income.
Yep.
That's if you're able to avoid the income and figure out how to put money into assets that grow and compound over time without pulling out any income and using those assets in a strategic way, then you're using the tax code to your advantage. But it's as soon as you get income, that's when you get
Yeah.
Federal tax, state tax, some places local tax,
Yeah.
dog tax, cat tax,
All kind of
every
taxes.
sort of tax. But
Yeah.
being that you're faith-based, were you always like a faith-based advisor, or was that something that you pivoted into at some point?
Yeah. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done multiple businesses, but I moved into the advisory place probably about 4 or 5 years ago when I realized, man, because I tested these things, everything that I try, I, tell my clients, I live it out. So because for me, I don't need to sell it. I can just show, hey, this is how I live out, so I can kind of show it as a proof for myself, because a lot of the people don't necessarily have the opportunity or, test those things. So I never was faith-based in the beginning, even though, like I mentioned, I grew up in a faith-based family and, my dad was an entrepreneur and stuff. But pursuing some of those good and bad in life and making a lot of mistakes, I realized, okay, there are better things. So once I learned those things, part of my faith is helping others. I'm a value driven person, so creating value for others is something. And one of the principles, because when talk about faith based Bible, Jesus, he was a teacher. He taught a lot in parables, because
Mhm.
parables is rigged or covered with a lot of truth in it, but it's hidden. Until you pursue, you don't find it. It's not like you just go there, it's lying there. It's like gold. It's always hidden under rocks and dirt. You had to dig, you had to search and find it. So so this is where I pursued those truth, and I found it to be real. So once I
Mhm.
found it, I was like, hey, why am I keeping to myself? It is not limited, it's unlimited, wealth that is out there, so I don't need to hoard. So those are some of the things that inspired me to say, hey, I'm going to teach others. Not everybody might like it or understand it, but that's okay. This is what I live it out, and I'm going to invite others and educate others. And so once I educated, I noticed that more people wanted to know. And
Mhm.
so that's what kind of drove me into living on more of the faith-based aspect of it. So a few years ago, then I started my wealth advisory firm and said, hey, I'm going to be a little more unique, unconventional. And because, it's not for everyone necessarily, but those who would like, there are truth, there's plenty, there's abundance. And I also, teach them more on the mindset of pursuing wealth, because you can have a lot of money and still have the scarcity mindset. And, you can hold, with a lot of money in the bank. And, one of the principle in the parable, Jesus teaches, if you hoard up all these things, if you die today, what are you going to do with these things, right? So this is where I teach families on legacy planning. Okay.
Mhm.
You never know if you have tomorrow, but if you plan well, your riches can impact even in after you're gone, and your kids can understand, and your family and beneficiary can know how to use this wealth and manage and steward it, rather than just kind of hoard it and spend it and it's gone, and so, because then you are not really fulfilling the purpose and also impacting others, and even if it is your family, right? So for me, those are things that it inspired me to follow more of that faith-driven aspect, of faith-based in aspect of wealth and accumulation and legacy and plans like that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, when you really want something, you gotta be looking for it. It's kind of like if I told you, hey, like start looking for yellow Jeeps, you're gonna start seeing yellow
Yeah.
Jeeps. You're gonna find that yellow Jeep. If you're looking for problems, or you're like, you're gonna find problems.
Yeah.
But there's all sorts of problems. I mean, there's problems for when you're not doing well, and there's problems when you are doing well. It's all about making uh, the lows higher and the highs higher over time,
Yeah.
rather than
I'm sorry. My
oh, you're
faith-based,
good.
mindset, changed in the sense of you talking about problem, right? Problem is all around us. But as an entrepreneur, for me, that's a great thing, because that's what helps me to come up with a solution. And I make most of my business from that. I find a problem, find a solution, then I build and I structure around it and scale it, right? So
Hmm.
it's a mindset of, are you taking it as a challenge that kind of crushes you, or as an opportunity to build and in a scale and help others? So for me, that's a, I used to have a problem mindset focus. Now it's have an opportunity mindset focus. So it just changes, it doesn't change necessarily the circumstances, but it changes my perspective and my view of, how do I navigate and make things better.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, some people just want something to complain about regardless of what's going on. I've been working towards looking at there are no problems, just situations. And
Right.
you have to figure out how to manage the situation. Uh, most problems are made up. They're made up by the mind.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. Most
So
of
I
it is.
mean,
Yeah.
so faith based, and you were doing an entrepreneur. You were an entrepreneur. And you became like started like during the pandemic almost.
Yeah, this financial stuff came always because initially I started as just a social financial education platform. I just
Hmm.
loved educating others. I have kind of a teacher heart. So once I know things, I like to teach on it, and and let people decide is that for them, and so that's kind of the tough times is when I was educating people, because that's when a lot of people went through the mental aspect of struggle. So
Hmm.
this was a great way for me to help people. And then I thought, hey, one thing I learned over years and teaching on faith based is it is always better to give a hand out than a hand up than a handout. Handout keeps people where they are, and even if they are struggling, hand up
Hmm.
helps them to get to their place of purpose and have a dignity of job than just getting handout. So and I used to work and help out in the homeless in a ministry with as part of a nonprofit, and I
Hmm.
realized majority of the people, 90-95% people, have gotten to a place they're struggling mentally. They just take the hand out and stay where they are. And but I realized if I'm taking a little more effort and give a hand up, it transforms their life, and they become productive to the society than just being consumers. We talk
Hmm.
about debt, right? There's consumer debt, and there are other debt you can use to scale, so and build wealth, right? So I learned that it is better to give a hand out and educate and help people to get out of debt and make themselves better than just a handout that usually end up keeping people in a comfort zone where usually people end up dying.
Hmm. So what is a hand up? Like, what's an example of like a hand up
So,
versus
I do
a
also,
handout would be to me is like, oh, like I'm hungry. Someone gives me a free meal.
yeah, it's, I tell this story instead of giving you a fish, teach you how to fish.
Yeah.
Right, that's a simple way. Right, once I teach you how to fish, it's harder because I had to take more time how to teach you all those things. It's easier to just give you a fish and say go feed yourself, right, or eat the fish. But if I teach you, it takes a little more longer, but now you have empowered yourself, you have more dignity of creating wealth, and
Hmm.
and you are able to also give back to the society. So that's probably, I don't know if I give you a quick version of what that looked like.
No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I was watching something about Dave Portnoy the other day, and he was saying like it took him like 10 years to make a certain amount of money. And he's like, now I think I can make that amount of money in a week, because he said once you like get to a certain point, making the money is easy. But I mean, I think it took him like he said more than 10 years just to like start churning. And I mean, most people give up after like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So how does your faith-based mindset and outlook help those that are stuck in handout when they need to be looking for hand ups?
So, which is sadly our society, our government, our religious system, everything has created a handout system.
Hmm.
Not intentionally necessarily for but just out of good heart. So this is where again my faith driven. There's aspect of differences, just doing religious activity versus a relationship, or instead of from a transaction to a relationship. So you can hand out is just a transaction. Okay, most of the people doing Christmas or Thanksgiving culture here, we give handout. We see somebody homeless, and we feel good, right? There's nothing
Hmm.
wrong with that, but that's is a temporary fix. Then a hand up is really caring for someone. Say, hey, let me come along and help you, because all of us, I believe, have God-given gifting and talents and abilities. A lot of times circumstances might crush some of those things, but if someone come along and give a hand up, they can really understand who they are and overcome those challenges. So faith for me helps me to overcome the challenge and become an overcomer than a one who feel like, oh man, I'm handed out the wrong things and blame others kind of mindset. Because I had struggled through a lot of things as an entrepreneur, because most of the business, it takes 3 to 5 years to, overcome that break-even point and press through the struggle and challenges. And, it's after the 7th, 5th, 6th, 7th year, most of the business are able to grow, right? So that's the same thing with individuals also. There are a lot of struggles, and people are sometimes, because of the way society is, if you're not successful, if you fail a few times, you're called to be a failure, right? We are, kind of titled that way. But failure is what makes you successful. That's the secret. One of the secrets to success is you fail forward and you overcome your challenges and you become strong.
Mhm.
Right. I have a sports business. I'm a, kind of like freight driven. I'm also a lifestyle driven in sports also. I manage my health same like my wealth, because if
Mhm.
you don't, that's part of your wealth, and you end up spending a lot of money in your, older years, what all you make. So a balance of life always helps you to pursue, and faith is part of my lifestyle. It's not something I profess and go to a temple or a mosque or, any of those. For me, it's more than, it's a lifestyle. It's principles that I follow, same like gravity. I follow those principles and I honor God, a higher power than me, and also, serve others. So one of the principles I use is please God and serve people, not the other way around. A lot of times we please people by just serving God. So for me, it is honoring the principles is pleasing God, and serving others is a hand up version than a handout version. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like in golf. Like you hit a bad shot, some people are like, oh, versus like like Masters, Bubba Watson in the trees hits this big sweeping shot, recovery, wins the Masters, and like that's the shot like everyone remembers
Yeah.
by hitting that recovery shot. So it wasn't like a failure; it was just like one bad shot. But how do you recover after you hit that one bad shot? Versus most people are like, "Hey, I failed. It's not for me. I'm
Yeah.
done." It's but also you sometimes have to have that blind faith because when you're looking to build anything that's worthwhile, a lot of people say, "Hey, you got to get lucky."
Yeah. The more lucky you are, the more you work at it. As I was saying, because it's how much you put your effort into it, your luck become more and more, it seems, right? So,
Yeah, someone once told me, "Luck is the residue of hard work."
and
So,
interestingly, there's hard work and there's smart work, and there's different way people work, because
hmm,
you could be, I grew up in India. You could be in the slums of India and work really hard and never able to get out of there unless somebody gives a hand up, right? So, but there's also smart way you work. One of the things I had learned over the years is to rest, not hard work, because hard work can create, Bible talks about, you create thorns and thistles. A lot of
hmm,
people work long hours, still stay in it. But this is part of the faith in aspect of finance and wealth. I teach the people that it is not just hard work, it is also, there is a divine aspect of everyone. This is where I talk in my book about money, and it's called mammon, or the spirit behind money, which controls, and in a money, in the sense of, it can either create greed and anxiety, fear, worry, and discontentment, or there is the other side of the spirit of mammon, or money, is trusting in a higher power, and I call God, that gives you the ability to create wealth that does not add sorrow. Solomon, the wisest man, said, he gives you the ability to create wealth, and he adds no sorrow to it. That means you can have a lot of money and don't have all the headaches that come with it if you're creating righteous wealth compared to
hmm,
unrighteous wealth. Now, people who makes all kind of money, right? So it's not money that's satisfied, it's your heart. And if your heart is right, you can be satisfied with little than someone who has a lot. And if you are just greedy and just hoarding things, and if it is self-focused, it never makes you content. You just need more and more. How much do you need? How many billions, right?
hmm,
So these are also different when I'm focusing on a faith driven aspect of money and wealth, compared to just pursuing money. And you can get to that enslaved mentality of greed and wanting more, and creating frictions and division and all those things, then if it is a faith driven, for me it's always other centered than self-centered.
Yeah. Some people are just working to get to some sort of destination in the future. But the thing about the future is you're never there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're only here right now in the present moment. Right now is the most important moment because now it's gone.
Yeah. If you can't enjoy present with what you have, you will never enjoy future with what you're pursuing.
How did you handle like the darker times when you were like pushing through everything? Because it could be a lonely start.
Yeah. As an entrepreneur, that's been a struggle that I went through. This is where, for me, my faith came alive. And, so when I pursued the biblical principles on money and wealth, and I was still, it was kind of like 1 feet on one board and the other on the end. So I was trying to do the right thing, but I was still pursuing money because, that's where I thought my value was, my net worth and network. That's where I put my identity. And until I realized that was the wrong identity, I was kind of, pegged to the wrong system, So until, I pursued my faith, I realized God has called me and created me with a purpose. And I started going from profit to purpose. So when I shifted my mindset from just pursuing profit to purpose, my lifestyle and my, joy and my peace, everything changed, and it was less about profit and more about purpose. And I realized that I'm called and created to fulfill a purpose. And, there's a plan that's greater than just profit. So that's what changed me to, to focus more on what is my purpose in life. What am I created for? Is it just about making money, having family, having good things, or is there more to it? So then I realized I learned about eternal riches. It is not temporal riches. I realized that there's riches you can create, beyond your life here on earth through, things that you do with what you accumulate. So those are some of the reasons that I pursue the biblical principle on money, wealth, and what is purpose. What am I created for? Is it just for temporary things? Is it more to it? So that's what helped me to understand that faith is real. It's not just an unseen world. Same like we live in this natural world with our 5 senses. There's a 6th sense. That's what I call it, faith, that you can function in the supernatural, into eternal things. It is unseen world, but it's parallel to the world that you live in. So, and for me, that helped me to see faith as more than just a religious, activity or pursuit of things, than a lifestyle and a strength and a sensation that I can sense and feel the eternal prospect and calling that I have to fulfill the purpose that God has created me for.
Yeah, totally. And I remember you were saying before we hopped on here that you've studied like 2,000 different, what's the right word?
Yeah, it's a Bible has over 2,000 scriptures, biblical principles on money, wealth, stewardship, ownership, all those things. So those are things over the years, last 10, 15 plus years, I had read and pursued. And like Jesus said, it's like in a gold. Unless you dig up and remove those dirt and rocks, you never find it. Even when you find the gold, if you don't refine it through the fire, it never brings its best value. So that's where digging through those scriptures in the Bible helped me to realize what was good, what was bad, what's purpose driven, what's profit driven. And that helped me to truly understand what true wealth is. And I realized it's more than money. It's more than material things. True wealth lies in people. And that is eternal, is what I found.
Is there anything in the Bible that you like disagree with at all in terms of what you've researched?
There are things that I don't understand fully. I don't claim to know everything.
Maybe not disagree with it, maybe not like fully grasp.
Yeah. So because, again, this is interesting, Jesus, his 12 disciples who walked with Jesus on earth, for the historical evidence of the Bible, that towards the end, they were asking him, why are you always talking in parables? We don't understand all these things, right? So Jesus said, it's not for everyone. It's only to those who pursue, those who endure, those who knock, those who seek. So that's when the goal that was underneath, as you do those digging and as you refine that precious purpose that is in you, it become more and more valuable. So there's not everything that is taught in the Bible is comprehended for natural mind, because it's covered with all these challenges and problems and sins, so-called, in this world that we all pursue for self-gratification, that covers it until you are willing to surrender yourself to a higher purpose and calling. And Jesus called it is dying to yourself. So when you die to yourself is when you realize there's a lot more life to it than just these temporary things. So
Mhm.
to answer your question on, yes, there are things that still I don't understand fully. That's where I walk by faith, though I don't able to understand or see, knowing that there's greater purpose if I can step out in faith, though I cannot comprehend and understand everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably impossible to understand everything in that book.
It is it because it's there's so much of truth in there, and what for me personally was, the more I pursued, the truth set me free from a lot of the strongholds and limited belief I had before.
hmm So, do you believe if people lived more of a faith-based life, they could get rid of handout mentality and get more hands-up mentality?
I believe so. I believe every human has a faith, because you cannot get out of the bed if you don't have faith. All of
Mm,
us are given faith in different ways. There is a spirit-led faith, and there's a human knowledge-based faith. Because, like I was told, I'm sitting in this chair because I have faith in the chair, right? I'm
mm,
speaking to you over the microphone because I have faith that it is working, right? So there is that aspect of human faith that we know from knowledge. And there's a spirit-led faith, which is invisible world. Jesus talks about a kingdom, which is different than the religion. Is that's an invisible world, which is not accessible with the physical thing. So even when you talk about hand out and hand up, it's a higher level of living out faith when it's a hand up, because
mhm,
you are not able to see everything, but you're saying, hey, I think there's better, more than what the struggles or challenges I'm facing. Let me step out in faith against those struggles and face that giant and see if I can overcome. And that
mm.
helps you to get to the next level of it.
What would be be your top 3 legacy items that you'd want to be remembered for if it was all the end after today?
I live every day as today is the last day of my life, and I live my life to the fullest. I don't wait for tomorrow, even if I plan vacations or that or this. I never know if I have tomorrow, right? Today, so I live out. For me, I want to live like a tree. I want to create food, which a tree never eats its own food, right? It's always for others. So, but it get nourishment where it's planted, because that's a natural process of, because a tree is planted. So I'm focused, every day to see how much fruitfulness can I bring in my life, right? So
Mm,
I'm not, I'm to the mindset that I'm not limited by the time or money or things. Today I have 24 hours like everybody else, right? So how do I maximize that? By serving others, pleasing God and serving others. So my legacy, what I want to do is, with what I have, what is given to me today, from all these years, what do I do to create wealth and prosperity and peace and joy and righteousness for others? That means right living, right doing. So my clients, my employees, how do I make their life also more prosperous based on their gifting, their talent, their passion, and the opportunity they have, so that I can also help them to fulfill the purpose. So for me, that those are some of the things to create eternal wealth, or Bible talks about eternal riches. You can use your temporary riches to create eternal riches by helping others finding their purpose and fulfilling their calling.
love it. Everyone go check out the book About My Father's Business by Sam, and enjoyed having you on.
Yeah,
We'll
man.
see everyone next time. Bye.
Thank you.